Sustainable. It's on everything now, and I should know because I use the word to describe my funeral work. Sustainability can mean different things to different people, which makes the word ambiguous. A supplier can use it loosely and not be lying exactly. There's nothing there to measure them against. As my business involves creating and sharing ideas for sustainable funeral flowers, I wanted to be confident that the flowers I provide and the techniques that I share fit within a definition of sustainable that I'm comfortable with. To this end, I've just completed the Sustainable Floristry Network's Foundation in Sustainable Floristry training, which has really helped me to clarify what sustainability means in relation to the funeral arrangements that I create. The Sustainable Floristry Network defines sustainable floristry as engaging in floral design and running a floristry business in a way that supports the environmental, social and economic requirements of present and future generations. This video isn't a rule book. This is my interpretation of how floristry can relate to 4 areas that apply to any flower, plus a 5th that's specific to funeral work and which is entirely in your hands. One thing to bear in mind is that sustainability is a spectrum, not a badge. You're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to make a more considered choice than you would have made otherwise. And importantly, to be confident explaining that choice if a family asks. Recent industry findings, such as the Sun Life Cost of Dying report and a report by Neville Funerals, show that roughly 34% of funeral directors report a rising demand for eco-friendly options, with nearly 1 in 5 families actively considering environmental impact when planning a service. Let's look at the 5 areas. Area 1, miles and seasons. First question, how far did this flower travel before it reached your bucket, and was it in season where it was grown? Roughly 80% of the cut flowers sold in the UK are imported. A large share moves through the Netherlands, which acts as a training hub, re-exporting flowers originally grown in places like Kenya, Ethiopia, Colombia and Ecuador. Flower miles is the simple shorthand. A British field-grown stem in summer has travelled a few miles, or in my case, a few steps from the back door. An out-of-season rose may have been refrigerated and flown thousands of miles. Seasonality matters too. A flower that's in season close to home generally took far less intervention to produce than the same flower forced out of season. But, and this is worth saying, closer isn't automatically greener. Depending on the energy source, a flower grown in a heated, lit greenhouse down the road in midwinter can carry a bigger footprint than one grown in natural sunshine abroad. And that conundrum is exactly why we look at the next area 2. Area 2 is how it was grown. And you have to ask yourself what went into the ground, the soil, and the people while this flower was being grown. Now there are 3 things to look at here. Chemicals. Now, cut flowers aren't food, so they aren't held to the same rules as edible crops. Intensive growing can mean heavy pesticide, fungicide and herbicide use, which matters environmentally and for anyone handling those stems all day. How about soil and input? Regenerative and no-dig growers protect soil health rather than depleting it. Peat-free propagation matters too, because peat extraction releases stored carbon. And then people. Sustainability includes the workers, fair pay and safe conditions for the people growing and cutting flowers, wherever they are in the world, is part of the picture, not a separate issue. Now, There's no certification for sustainability as a whole, but there are respected schemes for specific parts of it, fair trade for labour standards and grower level certifications. Just knowing they exist helps you ask sharper questions of a wholesaler. For my part, I can say with confidence when the flowers I've used in the funeral arrangement have been picked from my garden without chemicals and are peat free. So, area 3, what it consumed. The third question is, what did this flower drink, what did it burn, and what came wrapped around it? Water. Some flowers are grown intensively in water-stressed regions. The rose farms around Lake Naivasha in Kenya are the classic example. A thirsty crop grown where water is scarce carries a hidden cost that never shows up on the stem. Energy. 2 places to look: heated, artificially lit greenhouses and the cold chain, the refrigerated storage, transport and air freight that keep imported flowers alive in transit. Air freight in particular is energy hungry. And what about the packaging? Cellophane sleeves, plastic wraps, elastic bands, single-use bucket. It all adds up across a week of orders. On the flip side, growers and wholesalers who use paper wraps and returnable buckets quietly cut out a lot of waste. Now, in the winter months, when I order flowers in from other British flower growers, it really makes me happy to be adding brown paper wraps to the recycling bin rather than just adding more plastic to my general waste. Area 4, what happens after? So when the flowers have done their job, do they return to the earth or sit in landfill, releasing methane into the atmosphere? Flowers themselves are plant matter. They're compostable. They break down completely. But a flower's end of life is decided almost entirely by what it's attached to. Bind that compostable flower into plastic, wire and non-compostable mechanics and it can't go anywhere except landfill. Funeral tributes have an unusual end of life. They often finish at a crematorium or a graveside, where the question becomes whether the arrangement can quietly return to the soil or whether it carries plastic into the ground or the incinerator. And here's the key point. It's the florist who decides an arrangement's end of life and the construction stage. So, finally, area 5, construction and mechanics, which brings us to the question, the funeral specific layer that most sustainable guides miss and the one you control completely. Wherever and however the flowers are grown, you decide whether the finished tribute can return to the earth or is headed for landfill. The headline issue, of course, is floral foam. That familiar green foam oasis is a brand name, is a single-use plastic phenolic foam. It does not biodegrade. It breaks down into microplastics. It's manufactured with substances including formaldehyde and carbon black. It can't be recycled or home composted, and its fragments wash into drains and waterways. And funeral floristry is one of the most heavy corners of the trade. Coffin sprays, casket sprays, wreaths, posy pads, letter tributes, mum, dad, nan, traditionally all built on foam, which means it's also the corner where switching makes the biggest difference. The wider industry is already moving. Major flower shows, including the RHS, have banned foam from their displays, so you're not on the fringe here. You're ahead of the curve. If you want the details, I've made a video on the materials I use for sustainable funeral flowers, with their pros and cons. You can view it in the resources section on my website. So in conclusion, you don't have to win in all 5 of these areas. You're aiming for more considered, not perfect. But if you only change one thing, make it the 5th, your mechanics. You may not control where a flower was grown or how much water it drank, but you fully control whether the tribute you place in a family's hands can return to the earth.